Hello, Chris Mann with you, Director of Lifelong Leaders, Pastor of Mawson Lakes Community Church and Endeavour College. Today I want to talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions and doing a review of the past year. If you're like me, you may have set New Year's resolutions in the past. You may know people who have set New Year's resolutions in the past. And if you're like most people, in fact, the vast majority of people, you'll have set a New Year's resolution and then found that your New Year's resolution, it was only a matter of days, weeks if you were exceptional, before your resolution failed. And if you're like over 90% of the population, by the end of January, you've totally given up on your New Year's resolution. Why is that? Why do New Year's resolutions fail so much? Well, so often. Well, there's a simple reason, and it comes back to a saying that got shared with me many years ago, and it's been a saying that I've been trying to live ever since, and it applies in so many areas of life. It's this: culture eats vision for lunch. Culture eats vision for lunch. So this is commonly used, this saying, when it comes to organizational vision and organizational culture, that you can have a vision as an organization, as a church, as a school, whatever group you're part of, and the culture of your place will defeat your vision. If you can have a great vision but a poor culture, your vision actually isn't in the end going to be worth very much. But if you have a great culture and then have a vision to go forward, well, then your vision will succeed. So this is also true in our own personal lives, that our own lives have a culture. And so we can have a vision for our life, we can have a goal that we want to achieve, we can have a New Year's resolution that we do in the coming year. But if the culture of our life doesn't match the vision that we want to achieve, well, then that vision is going to get defeated, especially when it comes to things like New Year's resolutions. Because New Year's resolutions, they're often noble goals, but so often when people have a New Year's resolution, the deep work of wanting to change our lives hasn't been done. So I want to talk about a process that involves examining the culture of our lives and help you have some of the tools that you need to get further to where you want to go. So today's not really going to be about goal setting or about a New Year's resolution. Today's going to be about life culture, and it's going to be about examining our life culture so that we can move forward into the next 12 months. So first of all, what am I talking about quickly for the culture of our lives? I'm talking about things like our personal habits, the things that are both good for us and things that aren't good for us that we do each and every day or each and every week. Our family and our friends, our workplace and how that affects our lives, our attitudes in various areas of our life, whether they be good attitudes or poor attitudes, and then our beliefs about God, about ourselves, about others, and about our circumstances. All of these things form part of our life culture, the way we live, the way we behave. There are other reasons, of course, why our resolutions don't succeed, changes that happen to us that we are in no control of. And of course, 2020, we experienced plenty of that. And then just the fact that life is complicated. Those things all can trip us up from achieving our goals and our resolutions for any given year or any area of our life. So when I'm talking about examining life culture, specifically what I want to share with you today is looking at how we spend our time, how we've lived, particularly in the last 12 months. And I'm going to give you some tools, and I'm going to go through step by step as to how we actually do this and how I actually do this when I review my year that's just been and when I look at my year to come. So what I do is I look at how I spent my time. So how I spent my time in 2020 is my first step. Now I'd encourage you to make this your first step. So step one is to look at how you spend your time. Well, how do you do this? First of all, of course, you need to have an idea as to how you spend your time, and it really helps if you have a calendar, a diary, or a planner. Now, this might be perhaps the goal that you decide as a result of what you watch and listen to today is to have your own diary and planner. I just want to talk about two things that I use. The first is I use my calendar on my phone. And then second of all, I use a planner called the High Performance Planner. It's by a guy called Brendon Burchard. You can look him up online. There's plenty of places that you can get that planner from. Each one covers about 2 months, and it really helps me. That's worth having a look at. So I use those things to look back across my year and look at how I spent my time. What were the tasks I spent my time on? What are the people I spent time with? What did I do over the past year? As I'm doing that, I ask myself 3 questions, and you might want to write these 3 questions down. How do I feel about how I spent my time? So that's the emotional side of things. What emotions am I feeling as I look back on how I spent my time? Then what are the facts around how I spent my time? And that's just the basic information. What was I doing and when and why, and without really getting into the emotional side of things. Then the third question is, what do I think about how I spend my time? And that's where I try and marry up my emotions and the facts. And this is really important because sometimes our emotions are a really great indicator as to how we spent our time, and they're a really great indicator for just information in general. And it's really important that we listen to our emotions and then we reflect on them. But our emotions don't always match the facts, and so we spend time thinking through our emotions. Why did I feel that way? What was really going on? What were the causes of those emotions for me? So that's the first step. How I spent my time, having looked at your calendar and looked at your diary, and then asking those 3 questions. How do I feel? What are the facts? And what do I think? From there, I go a step deeper into how I spent my time. And I divide my time out into 2 key areas. The first and most important one for me personally is the relationships that I've had in the past 12 months. Who have I been with? Who have I spent time with? And I do something which might sound a little bit harsh perhaps to you, I don't know. But I look at these key relationships, the people I spend time with over the past 12 months, and I ask myself 2 questions. Who gave me energy and who drained my energy? Now, I don't do this to condemn anyone who drained my energy or to say, oh, look, I have to avoid and I have to cut those people out of my life now. But what I do is I go, okay, if I'm called to serve people, first of all, I need to serve wherever I can, but I also need the energy to be able to serve well. I need to be able to give my best. I especially need to be able to give my best to the people who take energy from me, so that when I am with them, when I am serving them, that I can make a positive difference somehow in their life. Now, it's not always up to me to make that positive difference. They're responsible for their life. I'm not responsible for their life. But I am responsible to give my best when I do spend time with them. So look at who gives me energy and who takes my energy. And the people who give me energy are the people who I want to be aware of, so that I've got a resource in difficult times and I've got a source of energy that I can go to whenever I need it, plus the fact that I enjoy being with those people. So I look at those people and look at those relationships and how that worked in my life. And then I look at my work tasks. That's the second part. What are the jobs that I did in my time? What's in my job description, for example? What tasks did I commonly do on any given day or week? What are the things that other people are expecting of me that I did or didn't do? And I look at those tasks and I do a similar thing. I go, okay, what work tasks gave me energy and what didn't give me energy? So that's the next level of looking back on the past 12 months, and it helps me assess then the people and the jobs, the relationships and the tasks. And having a good picture of those really gives me a good insight into my life culture and how I spent my time, and it gives me then a launching pad for the next year. Now, as you're watching this, you might go, okay, that's really helpful, and it might be worth you not even paying attention, just actually stopping the video or the audio now and going and doing that, and then maybe coming back later. Because if you've never assessed your life culture, if you've never looked at your life in any detail, this one step alone is going to help you immensely. But there's a step on from this that I'm going to get into now, and it's called prioritization. Now, we all have priorities in our life. We all have things that are important to us, but we often don't do a lot of thinking around our priorities. Now, if you've never done this before, I'm going to give you a very simple method to do it, the simple method that I do in my life. And so I look at my life, and this is outside of even doing a life review, doing a culture review, and I ask myself 3 questions. The first is, what is required of me? The second is, what gives me a great return? And 3, what do I find rewarding? So what's required of me? In other words, I'm the person that needs to do it. I'm responsible for this area. I'm responsible for this job or this relationship or whatever it happens to be. And then what gives a good return is what bears fruit. What gets good results for me and the people around me. What has a great impact for the effort that I put in. And the third of all, what gives me inner reward? What fulfills me? What brings me joy? So I have a list of all the things I do, and I try and prioritize according to those 3 questions. And I have a scoring system that I'm going to give you at the end of this video to help you with that. So I do that, and I go, okay, if something fits all 3 of those categories, then that becomes my top priority, for instance, or amongst my top priorities. What I do then with knowing my top priorities is I evaluate my relationships and my tasks against those priorities. And I go, well, did how I spend my time match those priorities or not? And sometimes they don't. Sometimes I look back at my life. In fact, every year that I've done this, and I've been doing this for several years, I look back at my life and I go, okay, these things didn't fit. This way that I spent my time in this area of my life or this area of my work didn't fit my priorities. And that reveals something to me. And if you do this review yourself, that will reveal something to you as well. And what it will probably reveal to you is that you have hidden priorities that don't match your desired priorities. Let me give you an example. There are some areas in my life in the past 12 months where I did things that didn't fit my key priorities, which I'm going to get into what they were for me in a moment. And then I have to ask myself why. And the reason why, in one big chunk of my life where I didn't do the things that I needed to do, I didn't live according to my priorities, and I actually have to shift and become more aware of them. The reason why I didn't do them is because of a desire to avoid conflict. That avoiding conflict became a big priority for me. Not a healthy priority, not a good priority. I mean, I don't think you should be going out and seeking conflict, but avoiding conflict and not living according to your values and your true priorities, that's a problem. So that's something that I've discovered in the past 12 months affected how I lived my priorities. So just for interest's sake, here are my 4 priorities that I find as a pastor and as someone who does leadership development. My first priority is to reflect and to think. I get such great return out of everything else I do when I do this. When I don't reflect and think, everything else that I do drops in quality by a substantial margin. Reflecting and thinking is my number 1 priority. It's what's required of me. My church and my business require me to do this. It gives me a good return and it gives me joy when I do it. That's my top priority. My second priority is to learn and listen. So learning and listening comes in a variety of ways for me. It comes from watching sermons from other preachers, learning about leadership from a variety of speakers and books. It comes from listening to people who are my friends, because every time I listen to someone and engage with someone as a pastor, I learn from them. I learn about them, and I also gain insight from them. People are full of wisdom if you listen to them. And then I integrate that into my life and try and find ways to apply it. So they're my first two. My third priority is to coach, which means basically to ask questions of people, to encourage them, to build them up. There's a whole series of ways of understanding coaching, but a big part of that is just asking questions that get people to think, because they have more wisdom than they know. And then they can be wise for their own sake, but then also to encourage them and to build them up. And they're the two components of coaching that I see as being really important. And then the last of my priorities comes into communication. So for me, that's in a variety of ways. That includes preaching, it includes teaching, it includes what I say in conversation, it includes writing, it includes videos like this, it includes emails. So my life fits into those four priorities, and it goes in that order because I communicate better when I do, reflect and think, and that includes, of course, prayer, listen and learn, that includes scripture, coaching, then my communication. If I do those first three priorities well, then communication happens well as a result. So they're my four priorities, if you, just for interest's sake, if you are interested in those. So these are my top priorities because these are how I best serve myself and the people around me. It's how I make a difference. You'll have your own priorities in your own life that serve you and the people around you as best as you possibly can. So they're my priorities. Knowing then my priorities and knowing how I spent my time, particularly the tasks and the relationships, I then asked this next question. What was I prepared for in the last 12 months? What was I prepared for in the last 12 months? Now, this is a less important question than the next question, but it's the one that sets up the next question. Because in every year, there are things that you're prepared for and unprepared for. And it does us so much good to look back and go, okay, what was I ready for in the last 12 months? What did I go into the year thinking might happen? What did I go into the year wanting to happen? What did I go into the year planning to have happen? What were my goals? What were my dreams? And so the things that we're prepared for, of course, we're prepared for them. And we're better able to live them out because we have prepared for them. So I prepared for a number of changes in my life actually in 2020. I was very intentional about them. Of course, they didn't quite happen the way that I'd hoped, but because it helped me immensely. And this might be what you need is, okay, to prepare for the next 12 months. How are you going to prepare? What are you going to do to prepare yourself, to grow yourself, to develop yourself, so that you're ready for what comes in the next 12 months in 2021? So I look at what I was prepared for, and then I asked this next vital question. What was I unprepared for? Because things happen in every year, not just this past 12 months, that we're unprepared for. So, and I came up with, and I'll just share with you what I was unprepared for in the last 12 months. Of course, I was unprepared for COVID. Who could be? But in some ways, I was prepared for change, but definitely not prepared for that. I was unprepared for just how much of my time and energy would go into crisis management as a result of COVID. I'd never had to manage major crises for that long in my life before. And for me, that's been months, and with peaks and troughs over the last 10 months or so. Part of that then, the next thing that I was unprepared for is cortisol management. How do I manage my changing hormones because of the stress that I'm under? Knowing that stress produces cortisol. What do I do about the cortisol that I have? So I wasn't prepared for that either, and so that teaches me something. I wasn't prepared for boundary reinforcement, and I've considered myself someone who's pretty good at managing work and life boundaries, but I wasn't so good at it. As 2020 wore on, I got worse and worse at it, and so that's part of what 2020 was, but I needed to be better prepared for it, and I wasn't. And the last thing I wasn't prepared for was just the speed at which I had to work. And for many of you in leadership roles, you had to work fast. You had to work both thorough and fast, and that's very, very difficult to do, and I was not prepared for that. So that's just some of what I was unprepared for. It would be worth you writing a list of things that you were unprepared for in 2020. So when I've gone through those questions, I then look at all of that and I'll go, okay, given all of this, what are my key discoveries? What are my key lessons out of 2020 that I then want to apply in the 12 months to come? What are the important discoveries that I can put into meaningful action? I'm going to share with you mine, and I came up with 10. You might come up with 3, or you might come up with 30, who knows? But I came up with 10 things that I'd like to apply, and I don't think I'm going to be able to apply all 10 at once, but these are 10 that I'm going to work on. Some of these 10 might even be discoveries for you. My first discovery is that when I become too attached to email and social media because of a perceived need of communication, it actually damages my ability to serve others, and it damages my communication. Now, of course, I've known that mentally, but I've really experienced that and discovered that in the last 12 months. And so I'm going to put in place some steps to increase my effectiveness inside and outside of social media and email. My second discovery is linked to that, but it's also linked to my phone and phone calls. And that's this: being easy to be making it easy for others to contact me reduces the value of contacting me. Let me say that again. Making it easy for people to contact me reduces the value of contacting me. Why is that? Well, I pick up the phone and I'm not prepared for a conversation. I'm not in a mindset or a headset in a space where I can serve people well when I pick up the phone. People get me at about 30% of how I can serve them rather than 100% of how I could serve them. I don't think of the right questions to ask, the right things to say. Everything's off the cuff and it has to be done quickly. And so conversations aren't well thought through on my end. So being easy to be contacted, being thinking of one thing and then switching attention quickly to communication actually isn't helpful for me or for the people around me. The third big lesson is that speedy and succinct communication gives huge wins, but comes at a cost. You're like, well, Chris, you just said about being easy to contact. Well, this is different. This is about getting to the point of what you need to talk about quickly with someone. So that can give you big wins when things need to happen fast, but it also comes at a cost, and commonly it comes at a cost of relationship because people also need time with you. So one of the areas that speedy communication has helped a lot for me has been in preaching, because when you're preaching online, you need to share things quickly and keep people's attention, but share with them something valuable quickly, something important quickly. My fourth big lesson is that stories, when they're told well, change lives. I've found this in so many areas this year, that when people are suffering, that them hearing a story that is told well, that engages them well, of someone else's suffering can really help them. It gives them a sense of community. So stories, when told well, change lives. They dig into something deep within ourselves. My fifth discovery is that my physical fitness impacts my emotional fitness, my mental fitness, and my spiritual fitness. And so I need to take care of my physical fitness. And the times of the year when I did that better, I did better. My sixth discovery: hobbies are critical to success in life, especially in a crisis. My seventh discovery, and this is so true in so many areas of my life: the quality of your team is what determines whether you'll make a difference in the lives of others. The quality of your team is what determines whether you'll make a difference in the lives of others. And so one of my things this year will be to really invest in my team and to keep on serving them as best as I possibly can. My eighth discovery is wanting to change gives you a massive head start when change becomes essential. I mean, can you imagine having an attitude, and you may have had this attitude, or you may know people have this attitude, who their disposition in life is, we shall not change, everything is right just as it is. And so when COVID came, they just couldn't cope, or perhaps you couldn't cope. But wanting to change, wanting to do things better, gives you a huge head start. There's just no comparison. The difference is staggering between those wanting to change and those who didn't want to change this year. My ninth discovery is that the access that I've had to quality mentors and their teaching over the last 13 years, that has made all the difference in my life. And I could just list for you a dozen mentors I've had over the last 13 or so years, including and especially some major business leaders and major leadership experts that I've had contact with over the last 13 years. Just the difference that they've made to me has been staggering. So the quality of mentors that I've had and the teaching that I've had, that's made a massive difference. And my 10th and perhaps the most important discovery is that the unconditional love of your support network can carry you through almost anything. So I'm going to sum up very quickly and give you this as something that you can do yourself. So first of all, assess the culture of your life. The most important thing is to assess the culture of your life, and to do so by looking back at how you spent your time. How you spent your time in the past 12 months, and specifically the tasks that you did and the people you spent time with. Once you've assessed the culture of your life, line that up against your priorities. Now, the system for priorities is I just give each thing that I have in my life, or each person or relationship in my life, I score them. A 0, a 1, or a 2. A 0 on the required scale is I'm not required at all to spend time with that person or at all to do that task. A 2 is I must spend time with that person or I must do that task. No one else can do it. 1 is in between. On return is 0. It gets no benefit for the effort I put in. A 2 is it gets lots of benefit for the effort I put in, and 1 is in the middle. It gets some benefit for the effort I put in. And then reward, a 0 is I hate doing it. A 2 is I love doing it. And a 1 is I like doing it. So that's how I score my my priorities. And then whatever gets the highest scores from those 3 categories, they're the things that I go, okay, these are my top priorities. So score your priorities and then look at your life against your priorities. So that's the next step. Chances are your priorities are linked, and mine, as I said, are linked. Then look at what you're prepared for in the last 12 months, and then look at what you are unprepared for in the last 12 months. And then in light of all of this, write down what you discover and what you're going to do about what you have discovered. So I hope that helps you. If you'd like to talk more about this, you can send me an email, chris@lifelongleaders.com.au. That's chris@lifelongleaders.com.au. This is really just a summary introduction to things like a year-end review, but I hope that this is a helpful step for you so that you have some really good inner work done that will help you move into 2021 and make 2021 successful for you. Thanks and bye for now.